Hello and welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art, and today I'm doing the Victorian Journey Tag. Now, I was tagged by Katie at Books and Things, and as well as Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. I'm really enjoying this one, especially as part of the Victober experience. So here is the Victorian Literature Tag. Question number 1 is, what was your first experience reading Victorian literature, and how was it? Now, I just recently talked about this in more depth in my recent video where I share some hints and tips about how to read Victorian literature, some things that have helped me in my journey to read. So I won't repeat everything I said there. I talked about it at quite some extent, but essentially I was immediately struck by the beauty and the power of its storytelling, especially Great Expectations. As a teenager, I tried to read it and I didn't quite get through it, but that did help me to discover more of Charles Dickens, which led me to A Christmas Carol. And I was able to read A Christmas Carol without a problem. And that helped me to then begin to get used to the style and language and beauty of Victorian literature. And so I know many others do as well, recommend, if you aren't sure you like Victorian literature, start with A Christmas Carol. It's a familiar story. It's a very accessible short novella. So I think many would enjoy that. Prompt number 2, has the reading of a Victorian book ever brought you to tears? If so, tell us more. Oh, yes, indeed. A Tale of Two Cities brought me to tears. First time I read it, I think I kind of already knew the answer or the ending of that book. You know, it's kind of in the popular public consciousness. You know, isn't it funny how some of the stories are like that? So I kind of knew what was going to happen, but what I was not prepared for was the powerful redemption imagery at the end. Some of the most beautiful phrases Dickens has ever written. And just for me, it was an emotional, very emotional ending. And that brought me to tears for sure. A Christmas Carol, going back to that, brings me to tears at several parts in the story. And I've read the book 20 or 30 times, or at least, and it still has the power to bring me to tears. Especially some of the scenes with Bob Cratchit and his son, and when it looks like Tiny Tim is dead, and the ghost. I'm acting like I'm trying to be careful of spoilers. If you don't know the story of A Christmas Carol, you must have been on a deserted island. Okay, but that dynamic especially just always hits me right in the feels. I'm trying to think of somebody other than Dickens, and I know some have had that same impact. I feel like North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell did. And that was more of the ending of North and South kind of moved me. But I'd say two very specific, well, it's another Dickens, but he has a short story called Dr. Marigold. And it's one that maybe not a lot of people have heard, but it's one I highly recommend. It tells the story of a cheapjack who is kind of like a traveling salesman of junk, and he adopts a young girl because of some tragedy in his life. He adopts a young girl to be his daughter, and she has some handicaps that make communication difficult. But it's a story of just his generous, undying love for his adopted daughter. It's very much kind of like a found family type of story. And it's, again, a short story, but it's one of the best that Dickens has written. And I really wish people knew more about that story. It's well worth a read. So check it out, Dr. Marigold. Very, very good story. But yeah, the ending especially just gets me right in the emotions every time. And then prompt 3, are there any people who have played a significant role in your Victorian literature journey? Absolutely. I would say one is my wife, because as I mentioned, when I first read A Tale of Two Cities, she was student teaching and was teaching that book, and we read it together and really dived deep into the story. And that was so much fun. And honestly, many of you on booktube have helped play the part in my Victorian journey, helping me find books, new authors, things like that, that I do talk about in my previous video as well. I won't rehash all of that, but just a special thank you to channels like Kate Howe and Books and Things, and then Lucy the Reader, although she doesn't make quite as many videos these days as she used to, but like each one had a particular love, for Dickens, for Gaskell, for the Brontes, and that really helped develop my taste and ability to read Victorian literature. And I'm very grateful for you ladies, and just the impact that you've had in my reading life. Question 4, do you have a favorite film or TV adaptation of a Victorian book? What about one you'd like to see made? Okay, sorry, I'm just going to have to go to Dickens again, because the Little Dorrit series, miniseries, is fantastic. I've talked about it before on the channel. I still love it. I think it's one of the best adaptations that I've seen. I haven't seen a ton of them, though, to be fair. For instance, I haven't seen the Bleak House one yet, that I hear is very, very good. Maybe I need to watch that here soon, but I'm always kind of behind on watching TV and adaptations because, in the end, I just would like to read the book, but I don't mind a good adaptation. Now, one you want to see made. Okay, Hollywood, the writers are off strike. Get the actors off strike, pay them what they're due. And you need, no, pay attention here. You need to make a Tale of Two Cities adaptation. I don't care if it's a movie, a miniseries, something. It's just so ready to be made into a series that I can't understand why we keep getting Great Expectations in A Christmas Carol every year. And if we really want to be a little crazy, we'll throw in a David Copperfield. And not that these are bad, but they just get made so much. And I'm wondering if we're at the point where, at least for now, those heavily adapted stories, maybe we need to set aside and focus on some of his other works that haven't been adapted. I know A Tale of Two Cities had one back in the early 80s, but it's awful. I don't like it. The acting is just really cheesy. It's just terrible. If I had watched that first before I read the book, I would have thought it was terrible. We need a good adaptation. Now, and don't go like all crazy and super dark where Dickens doesn't go dark. Don't make it like that. The more recent Great Expectations miniseries and the FX channel's Christmas Carol. We don't need that. Tale of Two Cities is powerful on its own. Make a good and faithful adaptation. I know you'd have to change things to fit it to the screen and all that, but it's a powerful story that, if handled correctly, would sweep the awards seasons, I'm sure. So maybe an idea for a future video is, let's do a fan cast of Tale of Two Cities as a movie. I'd be interested to hear what you think. Question 5, which character in Victorian literature most resembles you or you identify with most? Probably I got several answers here, but the one I think I'll share is, and this is not a main character necessarily, but for a while I had a friend who always referred to me as Fred from A Christmas Carol. She would say I was her Fred. I'm like, I guess, is his last name Scrooge? I don't know, actually. If Scrooge's sister married and had a child, then it would be Fred something. But you know who I'm talking about. Fred from A Christmas Carol, the one who bursts in to greet his uncle with Merry Christmas and has a beautiful speech he gives to Scrooge about how, that he says, Christmas has done me good and it will do me good. And I say, God bless it. And it's that kind of enthusiasm and joy for Christmas that I have year round that a friend of mine started calling me Fred, and it kind of stuck. I liked it. So I really identify on that side of things with Fred from A Christmas Carol. Prompt 6, do you have a favorite moment, scene, or line from Victorian literature? Tell us about it or read it to us. Okay, so I am getting dangerously close to answering every question with a Dickens story, but I love the Christmas scenes in Pickwick Papers. They're some of my favorite. See, I told you I'm Fred. um, I've already talked about A Tale of Two Cities, the many scenes in there. You know, it was the final sentence of that story is just so beautifully put, and it's something that I would love to put on my tombstone one day. You know, it is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. Oh, and then the story just ends, and it's mwah, perfect, brilliant. Trying to think outside of Dickens. I love Dracula. There are some very creepy scenes in there, especially towards the beginning, that are just fantastic. Now, I don't necessarily like epistolary novels, but this one is the exception. It's fantastic. There are several scenes in The Tenant of Wildfell Hall that I find to be very powerful and impacting. But it's been a few years since I've read that. I need to revisit that one. But I've already shared quite a few of them in this video and in my hints and tip video, so I won't belabor the point here. But you know, when it comes to beautiful sentence, Dickens gets it. Sorry, he's just fantastic. Question 7: does any Victorian literature intimidate you? If so, what and why? No, I don't think so. And I don't think it's ever really intimidated me. Like, I don't ever get intimidated by books unless, you know, I see some that are really, really long, like 800 or 900 pages. And it's just more of a, do I have the time to read this? Do I want to go through all of this? But for the most part, I haven't found it intimidating. I've found it exciting and almost as a challenge. For instance, I'm reading A Burglary by Amy Dilwer, and I love that book, but it was kind of challenging to get into at first. So I had started to do some highlighting and journaling, and that really helped me tackle it and kind of get used to her writing style. Another one, again, this isn't that it intimidates me, but it's just been difficult to get into is Deerbrook. And I think I'm going to DNF it again this month. I'm just not getting it. It's not getting into my head. And I don't know why, but I'm certainly not intimidated to start any of it. You know, to really get books that I would find intimidating are maybe some of the big Russian classics like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, things like that. But even then, I can find, if I work at it, you know, they don't bother me. It's just sometimes the time it takes to invest properly is the part that I don't care for sometimes. Question 8: what tips would you give to someone early on in their Victorian literature journey? Well, hey, again, go watch my previous video. I got lots of tips there, but just real quick to highlight that is, if you want to start it, keep at it. It's worth the effort. If a book is hard to read, don't be afraid to go to like Cliff Notes or watch some YouTube videos or booktube videos that help explain what you're reading. Because while reading is so fun for entertainment, it can also be a source of expanding your mind, your worldview. And sometimes those books that are a challenge to read can really give you that sense of accomplishment and joy when you finally have cracked it. I don't know why Deerbrook has been so hard for me to read, but I'm kind of getting excited now to say, all right, one of these months, I'm going to just clear the deck. I'm going to have only one book, and it's going to be that one, and I'm going to put all of my focus on it. And some might say, well, maybe you find it boring and you should stop trying. And that's possible. But I feel like I want to give it just one more chance. Like I've had a lot I've been reading this year, and I feel like that book is, for whatever reason, is really going to require my attention. So just keep at it. It's worth it. You will learn a lot. You'll learn things that how we've changed. You'll learn things about how we're still the same. And you'll have such an adventure learning about these characters and stories of years gone by. Question 9, what is your top recommended read for other readers of Victorian literature? Dickens, sorry, I gotta say, read Dickens, read Gaskell, and if you've already read, get into the Bronte sisters. And if you've read Jane Eyre already, that's great, but read more of what Charlotte wrote. Read all of her novels. Read Anne Bronte. Agnes Grey is such a gentle, beautiful, almost Jane Austen type story. But then The Tenant of Wildfell Hall is such a dramatic, powerful, feminist kind of new woman novel, I guess you'd call it, that really highlights the plight that women faced in the Victorian age. If they married somebody who was just awful to them, what recourse did they have? You know, very little. What rights did they have? Very little. It's such a powerful story. If you really want to be challenged in your thinking, that is a book that just really awoke my mind to the realities that women faced and the harsh realities that women faced. So a really, really good novel. Those would be some I would say, you know, I guess my advice to you, if you already love Victorian literature, go beyond the popular top 10, you know, dig into the obscure. You'll find treasures like A Burglary by Amy Dilwer. I hope I'm saying her name right. Books like Hester, I believe by Margaret Oliphant. And you'll find all kinds of recommendations, not just here on this channel, but in many of the booktube community. So make sure you like and subscribe and follow us for more fantastic Victorian content. And then it says, question 10, I'm going to be awful and not tag anyone. I know Victober is almost over by the time this comes out, and I think a lot of you have done it already. So if you want to do it, you're tagged, and please let me know if you want to do it so I can keep an eye out for your video. A couple things here real quick before I go. If you're a follower of my channel, I will be getting back to doing some Bradbury short stories and then finishing up Fahrenheit 451, talking about the endnotes stuff. I haven't forgotten. I just had some delays, and then Victober happened, and I wanted to put that aside so I could focus on Victober. It does seem odd, though, going through October without any kind of Bradbury content. And then November's coming, and then we get into my favorite time of year. November, December are just the best times of the year. So stay tuned for lots of good Thanksgiving, Christmas, fall book reading content coming your way. I also want to just say thank you, because I've hit 600 subscribers. It wasn't that long ago. I had only 500. And then I quickly jumped from 500 to 600 over just a few weeks, I think. So that's really exciting. And it's exciting me to see the channel starting to take off a little bit. And I'm hoping by next year I can hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. That's kind of the goal I have. I'd love to hit that. Not for any reason other than just that's a crazy number that I didn't even think was possible. So that's what I'm shooting for right now. And we'll see how long it takes me to get there. So thank you so much for coming along with me. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And I'll appreciate that. It goes a long way to help supporting my channel. All right, that's my Victorian Literature Journey Tag. And until next time, happy reading, everyone. Take care.